All right, what is up, YouTube? It's RSMario here, bringing you another Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom video. This is the final part to the big Reddit post, the big now deleted Reddit post that was detailing a lot of stuff from the games. So I already did a video where he detailed the abilities. I did a video where he detailed the changes to the game compared to Breath of the Wild. And this one is the final part where he goes into the dungeons. So he talks about story dungeons. He talks about the optional dungeons that you can do, which are kind of like smaller-ish dungeons. He goes into detail with all that stuff. I edited down as much as possible so there's not a very long plotting video of just me sitting there reading from a Reddit post. So I edited it down for you guys. Of course, if you want to continue getting videos like this from me, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell button, do all that good stuff that YouTube requires you to do to continue getting videos from me, as well as follow me at twitter.com/rsmario128. Like my video tweet, share the video tweet, and I'll shout you out at the end of the video. Let's get into the video. Okay, so story dungeons. So there are 7 story dungeons in general. So that actually kind of checks out because if you remember the mural, right? There are 7 Naginata over the character on the mural. Now we know that the Naginata are all tiers of the kingdom. So there's 7 tiers, and you have to collect all of them. You know, with the exception of the one that Ganondorf has. So that means that there are definitely going to be 7 dungeons. So this kind of checks out. So there are 7 total story dungeons. In contrast to the freedom and open world nature of Breath of the Wild, these dungeons sort of have to be completed in a particular order. The first dungeon, the Construct Manufactory, must be completed first. The next 3 dungeons can be completed in any order. Herba Citadel, the Farron Mines, the Domoran Sanctuary. The last 3 must be completed in certain order. The Sheikah Archives, the Zonai Observatory, and the Research Labs, and the Ark of Dumoran in order to reach Incarnate Ganondorf. Each story dungeon has uniquely themed-ish and has a variety of puzzles that you must complete because, of course, it's a dungeon. What is cool about these dungeons is that they reward Link for completing the optional dungeons, which there's extra dungeons too, explained below, to gain the other arm abilities. Puzzles become easier to complete, and each story dungeon takes less time overall to master. The first 4 dungeons are rather short, sort of like the Divine Beast dungeons, but still fun enough and unique enough to where I didn't have much of a problem. The last dungeons are much longer and overall more fun to complete, but at the same time they are much more difficult, which is kind of expected. I mean, of course, the deeper you get in the game, the harder the game should get. You know, there shouldn't be like a random spike in difficulty and then it goes back down to being relatively easy again. And it should be like the whole game should be a difficulty spike that peaks once you get to the end, and then that's it, you know. So then he says the first 4 story dungeons, and he kind of goes into depth here. I'm not going to go too deep into this because it's going to be very long. But the Construct Manufactory is the first of the dungeons that you have to complete, and it is an abandoned Zonai factory industrial building. There was nothing really noteworthy about the dungeon because it was more like a tutorial dungeon than anything else. The Herba Citadel is a structure that materializes beneath the raging storm of Herba Peak, and it's similar in aesthetic to the first dungeon, but more of an ice theme. Again, not necessarily noteworthy. Then you can complete the Farron Mines, which is a Zonai ruin below the Farron region in the biggest cavern tier. This dungeon was pretty cool. as it featured more diverse terrain and natural puzzles. The boss is called Burrowing Fiend. Burrowing Fiend. Treemouth. Okay, Treemarath. That's a badass name, I ain't gonna lie. And has a giant horned worm that would burrow underneath you and attack you from below if you stayed in one spot for too long. You can kill it in a way similar to the Mulga from the first game. Then there are the Dumoran Sanctuary, which is a large temple on the outskirts of the city. Another standard dungeon. It kind of reminded me of Skyview Temple from Skyward Sword with its aesthetics, overgrown and crumbling. The boss was called Corrupted Berserker Zonarok. So then he talks about the last 3 story dungeons. These dungeons are definitely better than the first 4 as they feature more segments and diversity in aesthetics and enemies. The first one you have to complete is the Sheikah Archives, which is the library / museum themed dungeon. It is located in the pit beneath the elevated Hyrule Castle. You must explore the upper levels of the structure, which is the museum segment. This area has a bunch of artifacts and skeletons of different creatures on display, although the different rooms and the enemies you face are the malice infused versions of the skeletons. So basically the dead animals that they have in this museum. So basically this is a museum, an undead museum in Zelda, essentially. Which that sounds freaking cool. I'm not gonna lie. That sounds pretty good. I mean, as far as everything being broken up and crumbling, I think it's a combination of what happened in Breath of the Wild plus what happens in Tears of the Kingdom. Because my personal theory is that there's going to be a time skip. I think something bad is going to happen. Probably like Ganondorf waking up. And once he wakes up, there's going to be a time skip to after he has already like done a bunch of damage and taken over most of Hyrule before the events really take place. I mean, I think that's why we see in the trailer, we see Zelda fall into the chasm, but we also see her in the sky with the Zonai furry man. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a time skip where eventually the Zonai save her and take her to hide her in the sky, and then you have to go out and save the world. Because, of course, if Ganon gets to her, then he has 2 tears, and that would not be a good thing. To reach the bottom of the Sheikah Archives, you will be in the spider nest and have to face Arachnid Abomination Malistra. Ooh, okay. This boss has the ability to climb walls and teleports around the arena, shooting web attacks and attacking from above. You just have to shoot it in the eyes to stun it, and then attack the abdomen. The boss can summon spider monsters when regenerating health, so be wary. And then in the last 3 story dungeons, I kind of breezed through this a little bit. These were certainly my favorite dungeons. The Zonai Observatory is located high amongst the remnants, essentially in the highest tier of the world that you can explore. You must first complete the lower section of the dungeon, which is just the control station, so you can gain access to the observatory and the research lab. The enemies here are just pure malice manifestations, taking on a variety of different forms. Once you complete the lower puzzle, you can explore the upper dungeon. The idea here is to resemble the central array in the observatory by exploring the research lab in the surrounding areas. Once Link has reassembled the central array, Malice corrupts the array structure itself, and it becomes my personal favorite boss. Once in the game, the ethereal planet malice structure called Twisted Celestial Malgonorum. Good lord. Okay, you have to use the Zonai charge fuse arrows in order to land any damage on this thing. The only attacks the boss has is shooting charged malice at you and using its arms to try to crush you. Once you stun each of the planet structures enough, you can climb on top of the boss and destroy each of the 4 energy outlets on its back. You have to complete this step quickly because Malgorum will shock Link with electricity and cause him to fall off once each of the power outlets are destroyed on its head. That sounds freaking crazy. Alright, that sounds kind of crazy. I mean, even though, it's still kind of like do this thing, attack specific areas type of boss. That sounds kind of crazy though. So then he kind of goes into Zonai Trials, where he talks about so these are going to be kind of like the Sheikah shrines of Breath of the Wild. So these trials are denoted by a giant boulder surrounded by green swirly magic, which we all kind of call that. You know what I'm saying? The Zonai Trials are also unique in their own sense in contrast to the 36 trials from Breath of the Wild. But each trial takes more time to complete. In my opinion, is much more fun and engaging. Trials are also different from Breath of the Wild, as most of them are not mini dungeons, but quests. At the beginning of each trial is the ghost of a trapped Zonai who needs Link to complete a task for them. These tasks can range from defeating a powerful boss to solving a Breath of the Wild shrine-like puzzle, collecting items while being hunted down, like the trials in Skyward Sword, or by completing a stealth section similar to the Yiga Clan quest. After successfully completing the trial, the trapped Zonai ghost will enhance Link, which essentially increases his damage potential in combat. Walking, running, climbing, swimming speeds decreases the amount of damage taken from a hit. Link is given a skill tree for his arm, which can dedicate these enhancements toward different branches of the skill tree. A Zelda skill tree. That sounds weird to me. It sounds good, but I don't know if Nintendo would actually do a skill tree for Link in a Zelda game. So then he goes into optional dungeons. So the optional dungeons are just the elevated labyrinths from Breath of the Wild and do not require Link to complete them in any particular order. They follow their own secondary storyline, which ties nicely into the main story and doesn't feel disconnected or separated in any way. Despite being optional dungeons, they are on par with the first 4 story dungeons, but overall, they are relatively boring like the Divine Beast. The bosses for each are optional. Of the optional dungeons are not unique in any way, just being the same boss but with slight variations. The dungeons as follows are the Akala Labyrinth, the Herba Labyrinth, the Gerudo Labyrinth, and a new Zonai Labyrinth that rises out of the ground in the Lanayru province because they are elevated in the sky now. There is a lot more to explore in these structures. Your main goal is to reach the core of each labyrinth after running through a 3D maze, solving different puzzles. Yeah, so basically it's a regular dungeon. This sounds amazing, which means it could be fake. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. Do you think it's real? Do you think it's fake? But that's about it. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, people, keep it real.